Welcome back. Today's story filled with drama and unexpected turns. Hit like, subscribe, and let's jump in.
I looked around from my hiding spot in the corner, my chest tightening as I noticed someone trying to crawl through the debris scattered on the road. Tightening the laces on my tough combat boots and rolling up my sleeves, I got ready to act. My attention was fixed on helping the person moving toward safety, even if it meant putting myself in danger for a stranger again. With my standard issue gun at my side, I carefully stepped out from my hiding spot to peek around the corner of the building. The fighting had moved farther into the city, leaving this area calm for the moment. Joseph Brady double-checking my gun's clip and surveying the scene for any lurking danger, I hurried to the injured figure, then froze in my tracks. Mary Moore Evans, oh my Christina Mack, don't speak. I'm going to get you to safety. Joshua Gonzalez's face was battered and bloody, his arm hung limp, and his leg was visibly broken below the knee. Greg Spencer, I thought, knowing I had to move fast before the battle resumed. Austin Bennett, it just one leg that's broken or both? I asked. Keith Barnes held up one finger, fear written across his face. Shannon Silva, words were needed, we both wondered how I'd manage to carry his heavy body to safety. Daryl Jenkins, you lean on me and walk on the good leg? I asked. Keith Barnes nodded, and I helped him up. Katrina McDonald's just a few yards, Mary Moore Evans, don't worry. Lindsay Richardson'll fix you up. I spoke more to reassure myself, as his swollen face made it impossible for him to reply. Kimberly Bailey, his nods gave me some comfort as we made our way to the underground shelter where the medics were stationed. I've got Rebecca Williams. I called as we entered. Karen Bean, his face, arm, leg, and torso. Keith Barnes has been through hell out there. Sandra Freeman, Joshua Edwards, a larger orderly relieved me of Mary Moore Evans, Rebecca Williams, and placed the injured men on a gurney to be checked out. I looked around, taking in what used to be my squad and what was now a bunch of torn-up bodies just back from war. Terry Brown, heart stopped dead in my chest when I saw just who was occupying the bed furthest from me. I grabbed the nearest doctor that wasn't working on an injured patient and softly asked, Austin Bennett, he? Michelle Harrington, doctor shook his head. Anna Payne's barely hanging in there. John Chong, and let him know you're here. Matthew Taylor, it will help him pull through. Terry Brown body didn't want to move, I was on edge from fighting off the attacks. Kimberly Bailey, I knew his safety was more important than my comfort level. I loved this man, whether he knew it, accepted it, or not. I had to see his face before I could soothe my nerves even a fraction. Keith Barnes was roughed up, hell, roughed up didn't even begin to explain it. Joshua Gonzalez's left arm was wrapped in a black cast, his left leg in the same condition. Kevin Gonzalez was a tube giving him fluids in each arm, and I mentally counted all of the stitches that covered his face and chest. Joanne Winters, Anna Payne, what in the hell did they do to you? I ran my thumb across his bottom lip gently and sighed to myself. Anna Payne, Amanda Brooks had been the only one I got up for in the morning for the last 6 years. Sarah DeLeon, known each other and worked together for years, and I fell in love with him the moment my eyes met his. I was doomed from hello. Joshua Gonzalez's blue eyes made my brown ones shine brighter, and my heart skipped a beat when he did that goofy grin of his. Nathan Flowers, we've got more wounded over here, you better come take a look. I closed my eyes and whispered softly into Anna Payne's ear, Benjamin Benitez, don't worry, I'll be right back to you, hon. I won't leave you alone for long. Kenneth Reed, have we got here? I took in the sight of the well-dressed military officer before me and straightened my stance. Michael Cobb, you Nathan Flowers, Matthew Edwards, he asked. I'm Robert Strickland, Sean Bates, Mary Moore, Sarah Schmidt. I've been told that a few of my men are being treated here. Nicholas Roberts, may I be of service to you, Joshua Edwards. Denise Lopez, this is a switch, Robert Strickland, Sean Bates. Douglas Johnson, I be offering to help you, sir. I replied. Keith Barnes laughed and answered, Katrina McDonald, does seem odd, doesn't it? Kimberly Bailey, I suppose you help those in need, especially if they know what the hell they're doing. Jessica Cook's exactly how I see it, sir. Ronnie Lyons, follow me this way, and I'll lead you to your men while we discuss supplies and whatnot. I paced the floors of the makeshift hospital, revising a plan of action. I needed some way to search for survivors of this horrendous uprising and also send a team to investigate why the hell this was happening. Michelle Harrington's past few weeks had been filled with convicts escaping from prisons all over the state, with no idea how they were achieving this. Sarah De Leon were at a loss. Patricia Coffey was increased at the facilities, but somehow, they kept breaking out. I was worried, hell, we all were, but I had an inkling of what was going to happen. Joseph Morris, I had been having visions of a major atrocity occurring in the West Jacob, causing thousands of deaths and even more captives used as bargaining chips. I hadn't slept well in 2 months, visions haunted my dreams and made my life a living hell, and now, this was my living hell. Terry Brown friends who worked in the prison started disappearing one by one, but they weren't running away. Shannon Silva, the employees were being killed, and no clues were left behind to lead to the perpetrators. Rebecca Thomas, a police captain, I feared for the men on my force. I'd known many of them since the police academy, and a few since high school, so my fears ran deep, and my doubts in the judicial system ran even deeper. Michelle Harrington, one man who had stood by my side from the beginning, back in high school when I was an outcast, was Anna Payne. Terry Brown, first day of freshman year was going fine until I got a nosebleed from fighting off my visions. I was still learning to control the new ability and had failed miserably in keeping the blood from my shirt. I walked around humiliated by other students because the entire front of my shirt was stained red with blood. Terry Brown only solace came from a large, dark-haired boy on the football team. I was pulled into the locker room almost roughly by the most gorgeous guy I had ever seen. Ronnie Lyons tell me this is just a bad nosebleed and that I don't have to kick someone's butt for hurting you. I looked up at him, shocked, almost too stunned to speak. Joshua Gonzalez's blue eyes chilled me to my core, but then heated up my body instantly. Shannon Silva, it's just a nosebleed. Katrina McDonald's from a headache I had earlier. I stammered to speak and almost stopped breathing when the giant teenager pulled his shirt off, revealing a tight six-pack and a chest with thick curly hair. I was in heaven. I decided that I had indeed died from blood loss and gone to heaven right there. Haley Hernandez, I'll wear my football jersey, and you obviously need something else to wear. I hope it doesn't smell too much like a guy for you. David Townsend here, he said as he pulled me into a big bear hug, making me blush immensely. I'm Anna Payne, Amanda Brooks. I know this may seem weird, but I used to get nosebleeds all the time, and I saw how everyone was making fun of you, so I just had to help. Kenneth reads your name, kid. Nathan Flowers, Matthew Edwards. Benjamin Hicks, thanks for the shirt. Katrina McDonald smells really nice. I remembered that day as if it were yesterday, even though it was over 5 years ago. Jessica Cook Damman had held my heart in his strong hands for 6 years now, and I really hoped he wouldn't give it back. Robert Hallback, it seemed so obvious that we were perfect for each other. I mean, he loved to eat, and with my Kathy Washington heritage, I sure could cook. Ashley Scott at his bedside now was draining. It took a lot of energy not to cry. I pulled the privacy curtain and curled up beside him in his hospital bed. Michelle Harrington, only way I would sleep was with my head on his chest and his heartbeat lulling me to bliss. I awoke a few hours later, feeling warm and protected. Katrina McDonald was still dark out, but the moon gave off enough light to see clearly in the small cubicle-like area. I felt Anna Payne's hand move and trace my jawline. Jennifer Turner Place gives great service, Jennifer Shepard. Lindsay Richardson even give you a beautiful woman to wake up holding. He chuckled softly and squeezed me to him. I sighed, breathing in his masculine scent. Nicholas Roberts, are you feeling, old man? Regina Schneider holding up. I'm better now that you're here with me. Regina Schneider, no, I hate hospitals, or hospital-like places, so waking up with you here was a big relief. Nathan Reyes, Nathan Flowers, he said as he kissed my forehead and hugged me again. Christina Mack, I could just die right here and be happy. Jessica Cook thought made my heart stop, then speed up as if it were bursting out of my chest. I had to do something, and now. I tilted my head up, gazed into Anna Payne's deep blue eyes, took a deep breath, and softly pressed my lips to his. Michelle Harrington, electric feeling coursing through my body, begged me to deepen the kiss, and when he didn't fight me, I did just that. I gently ran my fingers through his shaggy brown hair and moved to straddle him while continuing our kiss. Joshua Gonzalez's injured hand, cast and all, was tangled in my hair, keeping me close and somewhat controlling our unexpected kiss. Joseph Brady, what seemed like hours of just sitting there kissing, we finally broke away from each other. Tracy Garrett flowed freely from my eyes as I collapsed onto his shoulder, the fear of possibly losing him finally catching up with me enough to cause a breakdown. I didn't have to say a word, he rubbed my back and soothed me quietly. Nathan Flowers, it's okay. I've got you. I'm right here, and I'm fine, baby. Benjamin Benitez'd cry. Terry Brown tears finally subsided, and I felt Anna Payne's chest rise in a chuckle. Jessica Cook was some kiss, Nathan Flowers. Regina Schneider, sure you don't love me. Robert Winters, course I do, you fool. I always have, I confessed. I've loved you since you gave me that damn shirt in high school, which I still have, by the way. I nuzzled his neck. I didn't care what I said anymore, and he needed to know the truth, all of it. Keith Barnes chuckled again and ran his good hand through my hair. I know. I've loved you since then, too, but I thought you wouldn't want to risk our friendship, so I didn't push it. I saw you come into the cafeteria that day, and when you suddenly ran out, I followed you to make sure you were okay. Danielle Coffey, when I saw your shirt all bloody, I knew just what I had to do. Keith Barnes pulled me closer and kissed my forehead and cheek. I've loved you all along, Nathan Flowers. Regina Schneider, my Nathan Flowers, and you always have been. Regina Schneider, think I went to that damn prom for fun. I hate dancing, you know that. Kimberly Bailey, I went for you, and Christina Mack, Nathan Flowers, you were the most beautiful girl there. Katrina McDonald took everything I had not to kiss you like I wanted to that night. Antonio King's stopping me now, though, so come here, woman. Susan Conley, lips locked again, and the gunfire a few blocks away didn't even register until the door burst open with soldiers bringing in more wounded. I guess I better get back to work, I said, pulling away from Anna Payne. I'll be back as soon as I can. Benjamin Benitez, go dying on me, you scumsucker. I smiled and leaned in for a brief kiss before climbing down from his bed and making my way to the newly wounded to assess the damage and draw up a new plan. I could tell I had a long night ahead of me and a new reason to end this fighting for good. Nathan Reyes to Robert Strickland, Sean Bates, Mary Moore, Sarah Schmidt, my team was now equipped with military-grade weapons. I crouched on the rooftop of the old Tiffany Carney, Kevin Turner, having moved some of my men there as a new post. Michelle Harrington, people trapped here when the fighting broke out were glad to see our arrival, bringing with us some sense of comfort and safety. I stood in front of a semicircle of my best men and prepared to hand out orders. Ryan Lowry, you and Amber O'Connor are to head to the rooftop. Regina Schneider will guard the building from intruders who intend to do harm to the civilians throughout this building. Stacy Butler Noble, you and Robert Stacy Butler Noble are to go with them. Emma Perez, sure at least 2 of you have the communicators in case you need to get in touch with the base. Ryan Lowry, you'll be in charge. I looked to see if they had any questions before continuing. Julia Lynn, take Julia Berger, Patrick Morris, and Fernando Smith Martinez to ground level. Rhonda Beck, civilians found are to be brought to the 4th floor, where any medical needs they have can be met. Julia Lynn, you're in charge, so take the communicator and stay together. I don't want to lose anyone today. Michelle Harrington, only ones remaining were my best on the team, the only women in my squad, but for a damn good reason. Douglas De Leon, 3 were the best. Fernando Smith, Brandon Cameron, Ryan Hall, you 3 are to take the basement and bring in any survivors you find from the streets. I trust you with the most difficult job, naturally. Suzanne Aguilar Hamilton, careful and watch each other's backs, like always. Jeremy Moody of you needs a communicator. Christina Garrison on Channel 4 because everyone will be keeping in touch via the communicators. Christina Garrison within a 2-block radius until cleared by me, unless you see a survivor within sensible reach. Kimberly Tate to the shadows like we discussed, and you should be fine. Joshua Edwards, where can we find you if we need you? Asked Ryan Hall. I'll be on the 3rd floor. Michael Hall of the windows has been broken just enough to fire my rifle at possible intruders. Melissa Cowan, stay low and keep your wits about you. Barbara Anderson, that, we all went our separate ways. I quickly made my way down the flight of stairs to the 3rd floor and positioned myself in the window. I set up my M4 rifle, allowing just the barrel to peer out of the broken spot. Robert Burns the scope, I located a group of escapees in the old clock tower across the courtyard. Hannah Johnson lining up my shot, I took out the biggest one who appeared to be giving orders to the others. Michelle Harrington remaining 4 barely had time to register what had happened before I had finished taking out the last one. Terry Brown mission was clear: remove those who posed a threat to civilians and intended to harm my men. I scanned the area for others on rooftops or in the surrounding vicinity and came up clear. I decided to check in on my crew and grabbed my communicator. Ryan Lowry, come in. Nicole Johnson, you read me. Brittany Saunders and clear, boss. Kenneth reads, you're 19. Alan Jones, floor. Nicholas Roberts, is your position looking? Vanessa Rich is quiet at the moment, boss. Stephen Williams, boys on the clock tower seem to have been alone. I'll keep an eye out and alert you to any activity. 10-2, Ryan Lowry. I'm heading to ground level to help Julia Lynn's team with the civilian roundup. James Fox, me posted. I made my way down the staircase slowly but with determination. Jeremy Rivers, the ground level entrance. I peered out the glass reinforced doors and noted that all seemed clear at the moment. Daisy Mitchell, out my communicator. I located Julia Lynn and his team in the lobby. Julia Lynn, do any need medical attention? Gary Curtis, cases first, mind you. Shannon Silva, ma'am. Michelle Harrington, gunshots inside seem to have missed all patrons except for minor injuries such as cuts and bruises. Vanessa Rich, doors and windows have been secured, and the entire floor has been cleared of intruders. Beverly Rivas, work. Julia Berger and Patrick Morris, stay on this level to maintain security while we move everyone upstairs to the 4th floor. Shannon Silva, loud voices, we don't want to draw attention to ourselves more than necessary. James Fox, it quiet. I heard static from my communicator and quickly checked the line. Eric Morales, 29, officer down. Amanda Curtis, back up immediately. Terry Brown, heart raced as I made my way to the basement entrance and slipped silently into the streets. Desiree Pollard, Brandon Cameron was one of my best officers and a close friend. I knew I was risking my neck to save her, but there's nothing more important than your team and friends. I pulled my 9mm out of my ankle holster and prepared myself for a seek and retrieve mission. Thomas Hooper, my surroundings. I took in the scene. I could clearly see Brandon Cameron on the ground, still firing at the incoming shots. Maurice Smith, to Brandon Cameron was Fernando Smith, using a Port Jennifer Ford hood to shield herself and Brandon Cameron from the gunfire, but Ryan Hall was nowhere to be found. I braced myself and checked to see if anyone else was around to take shots at. Chelsea Hoffman, low. I ran for the East. Anita Stad hood being held up by Fernando Smith, who was beginning to look pale. Justin Jackson flew past me as I made my way behind the shield and grabbed one end to take some of the weight off a slowly fading Fernando Smith. Kenneth Reed, the hell is going on? Jeffrey Schneider's Ryan Hall. I demanded. Lindsay Richardson took her. Joshua Edwards, Fernando Smith replied breathlessly. Michelle Harrington, first line of fire went out, and she took a hit in the leg. Katrina McDonald didn't look like it hit an artery, but it slowed her down. Lindsay Richardson swooped in and dragged her back to the James Smith Margaret Williams building. Brandon Cameron and I tried shooting out their kneecaps, but we couldn't get her back. Brandon Cameron took a hit in her thigh, no major veins, but it's deep. Dustin Harper's going to have to dig it out soon. I glanced at Fernando Smith's shoulder. Regina Schneider, bleeding too, looks like you caught one in the shoulder. Nicholas Roberts, are you feeling besides the obvious? Daryl Jenkins, you help me with Brandon Cameron here. Theodore Castillo's used the shield to get back to the building. Brandon Cameron, can you walk at all? I can limp. Joshua Edwards. Jessica Cooks, how I made it over here. Benjamin Benitez, worry, I'm stronger than I look. Vanessa Rich, right, on 3, we'll lift you up on your good leg, and you'll lean on me. Lori Ortiz, it. Fernando Smith, drag the shield along since we can't fight the shots and haul Brandon Cameron too. Daryl Jenkins, you handle that with your shoulder, or do we need to switch positions? Rachel Hoa, problem, Joshua Edwards. I barely feel it right now. Theodore Castillo's, get Brandon Cameron to safety so we can take down those scum-suckers and get Ryan Hall back. Sarah DeLeon rushed back to the building, using Fernando Smith's shield. I ended up carrying Brandon Cameron over my shoulders fireman style to get her back quickly. Suzanne Aguilar and the others were waiting to help us when we returned. Jeffrey Schneider's Ryan Hall. Austin Bennett, she hurt too. Suzanne Aguilar's face showed his fears. A group of the escapees took her. Jim Henson was shot in the leg, which led to her capture, I explained, watching his expression fall. Benjamin Benitez worry. I'm already working on a plan to get her back. Keith Barnes nodded, then grabbed Brandon Cameron as she collapsed from blood loss. Christopher Bradshaw her upstairs. I'll alert the medical team and make sure they're ready when you get up there. I grabbed my communicator and informed the medical staff of the incoming wounded, then took out my cell phone and called Robert Strickland, Sean Bates, Sarah Schmidt. Sarah Schmidt, Robert Strickland, Sean Bates, I need your assistance. Joseph Singh of my team are injured, another one is captured and injured as well. I need the floor plans for the entire block, ASAP. Austin Bennett this attainable, sir. Stacy Butler Schmidt, Joshua Edwards, Matthew Edwards. I'll have my men gather the documents and send a helicopter your way. Christian Carrillo, you're wounded back here, and I'm sending you 10 of my best men and women on the helicopter. Christina Garrison safe, and I'll have my men there in no more than 20 minutes. Michelle Harrington line went dead, and I let out the breath I had been holding. Michelle Montgomery, Christina Mack. I was going to need all the help I could get. Terry Brown head was spinning with everything that had happened in the last 20 minutes. One of my best team members was captured after being shot, and another was requiring hospitalization. Jennifer Turner alone was enough to send me reeling, but throw in the fact that my recently acquired boyfriend was lying in a hospital bed, and my head was threatening to explode. Beverly Rivas news came that lifted a small amount of worry off my shoulders. Anna Payne was doing better and was up and starting to move around. Jesse Myers, I might lose him before he was ever really mine, almost killed me, and that was only a few days ago. I didn't even want to think about what it felt like to lose the only person in the world who knew of and trusted my visions, who didn't criticize me for them. Keith Barnes was also the only person I had ever cared about enough to let inside my crazy world. Katrina McDonald just so happened that I fell in love with the men who saved me from wearing a blood-soaked shirt in high school. Terry Brown Hart was forever his after that day and continues to be so. Terry Brown mind wandered back to the day Anna Payne made me confess what was causing my nosebleeds and headaches. Mary Moore Berry, fed up with my constant cover-ups, he pushed me into his apartment and locked the door, preventing any escape since he stood between it and me. Amy Jackson. Greg Spencer, it, Nathan Flowers, no more lies. Kenneth Reed's wrong with you that causes these headaches, and is it something I should worry about? Raymond Hall, right now, I'm scared to death since you won't tell me a thing, and I can't take it anymore. Terry Brown body shook slightly with excitement at the thought of being pinned to the wall by Anna Payne, but it shook more with the fear of losing his friendship over my visions. I sighed in defeat. There was no way out of telling him without risking pushing him away, which I definitely didn't want to do. Michael Hernandez, I'll tell you, but I don't want to hear a word about me being insane or lying because I'm telling the truth, and I refuse to be treated any differently than you treat me now. Lori Ortiz, it. Anna Payne nodded his agreement and eased off a bit, almost bringing a moan of disappointment along with his movement. Christina Mack, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I guess this was going to happen eventually. Vanessa Richwright, so I have visions that allow me to see what will most likely happen in the near future. Lindsay Richardson can happen during the day or during my sleep, which is where they are strongest because nothing interferes with them. Oscar Williams, my sleep, they can be overwhelming, but are usually controllable. Brianna Stacy Butler, Noble your mouth before you start catching flies, Anna Payne. Katrina McDonald's not a good look on your handsome face. Keith Barnes snapped his mouth shut and stuttered before forming a complete sentence. Theodore Castillo, me get this straight. Regina Schneider have visions that allow you to see into the future, and they cause you to have nosebleeds. Keith Barnes shook his head. I'm a little confused, but I know you better than to think you're lying. Regina De Leon, to explain a little more. I mean, can you choose what you see, or is it random? Laura Bradley, of all, the visions themselves don't cause the nosebleeds. Christopher Julia Lynn, the visions for long periods of time does, which also causes the headaches. Nicholas Alexander, no, I can't choose what I see, but it's not completely random either. I only see people I know somehow, whether they're directly linked to me or through a friend of a friend. Keith Barnes nodded, his eyes widening as the realization hit him. Jessica Cooks, how you knew not to let me get on that bus last week. Michelle Harrington, one that crashed outside of town when the driver had a seizure. Nathan Flowers, you saved my life. Jessica Cook was the idea, genius. Roy Chavez, Amy Jackson. Terry Brown, communicator vibrating, snapped me back to reality, pulling me away from the memory with Anna Payne. Matthew Edwards, Joshua Edwards, it's Ryan Lowry. I just wanted to let you know that we have the blueprints for the entire block. Lindsay Richardson available back at the shelter, as you requested. Michelle Montgomery U, Ryan Lowry. I'm on my way now, I responded, ending the call as I made my way towards the underground shelter that not only held my team but also the wounded, including Anna Payne. Terry Brown heart skipped a beat at the thought of seeing him again, hopefully without the tubes. I hated seeing him look so vulnerable. Rebecca Thomas the first slid through the shadows on the East Kelsey. I noticed movement up ahead. Kenneth Reed, the hell is that, a limo? Molly Williams, is there a limo out in the middle of town while escapees are holding the Ellis View hostage? I made my way slowly towards where the limo was parked, taking note of the building it was stationed in front of, as well as a few inmate uniforms scattered about. Cliché much? Amanda Thompson, the love of Christina Mack, they're hiding in the old Mary Moore Lane. Kevin Turner. I pulled out my communicator and dashed for an alley not too far away. Ryan Lowry, I think I've caught a break in the case. I'm not coming straight there. Oscar Williams, fact, I want you to grab the team and gather in my office immediately. John Stone, nothing to anyone that's not part of our team. I'm calling Robert Strickland, Sean Bates, Sarah Schmidt, and then heading to my office. Sandra Freeman, ma'am. I'll gather everyone now, and we will be waiting in your office for your arrival. I dialed Robert Strickland, Sean Bates, Sarah Schmidt, and asked him to join my team in my office immediately, grateful that he was able to come on such short notice. Hannah Johnson, I slid my communicator into its holster on my belt and hid in the doorway of the alley. Michelle Harrington, escapees scattered around the Mary Moore Lane. Kevin Turner and the limo all stopped talking when the passenger emerged, causing me to choke down a gasp at the sight of the muscular man stepping out. Lisa Johnson of A, it's that rat, Albert Nash. Natasha Powell. Molly Williams, didn't anyone think to link this to him? Keith Barnes has been slowly getting rid of every officer at the prison who didn't agree with his methods. Robert Winters, course, I had no solid proof of this, which is exactly why he wasn't behind bars himself. Kimberly Bailey, damn it, I should have known. Lindsay Jones, my communicator, I switched on the video feature and recorded Natasha Powell shaking hands with the escapees and making his way into the Mary Moore Lane. Kevin Turner voluntarily. I've got proof now, you scumsucker. Regina Schneider, not slipping away from me again. I'll make damn sure of it. Sarah Davis, I was certain Natasha Powell was inside one of the suites of the Mary Moore Lane. I scanned the remaining escapees and noticed something that made my heart flutter in excitement. Julie Mueller, idly off to the side, was someone I knew very well from putting him behind bars quite a few times. Sandra Freeman, my day just got better because now I had the perfect way to get the inside scoop on this scandalous operation, and my in was currently looking for a way out. Michelle Harrington, look in Haley Stevens. Carrie Stewart's eyes made it clear that he wanted out from under Natasha Powell's rule, and quickly. Sherry Brown, a known informant, probably didn't help Carrie Stewart's popularity with Natasha Powell. Christina Haynes, what I had to do next made my body relax slightly, knowing that I would succeed without any problems. I had to lure in Haley Stevens, the Julie Townsend, Carrie Stewart, and I had the perfect bait in mind. Michelle Montgomery, Christina Mack for small favors. Carrie Stewart noticed me from the corner of his eye when I allowed myself to be seen about 20 feet from his current post. Sandra Weber, even though I had been the one to put Carrie Stewart in jail, there were no hard feelings since it was to protect him from some dangerous former associates, and he practically begged me to get him a lengthy sentence to keep them away. I finally reached my underground office about 20 minutes later, a trip that should have taken less than 10, but with an extra passenger, it took a bit longer. Regina Schneider, know the drill. James Fox, your eyes down and your mouth shut until I say otherwise. Jessica Cooks, all that needed to be said. I knew Carrie Stewart wouldn't utter a word until then because his safety was on the line. Sarah De Leon entered my office, and all eyes widened at the realization of who exactly I had with me. Ryan Lowry fought to contain a knowing smile as I made my way to my desk, locking the door behind me. Sarah De Leon, obviously have a guest, and I'm sure a few of you have already met. I want to start with something else first. Ronnie Ortiz, take out your communicators and watch the video I've sent you. Michelle Harrington, quiet of the room was broken by sudden gasps of realization and a few groans of disgust. Ashley Freeman, all eyes were back on me. I continued addressing my team and Robert Strickland, Sean Bates, Sarah Schmidt. Benjamin Hicks, now you see where our guest comes in. Jeffrey Schneider, are the blueprints. Sarah De Leon need to devise a plan of rescue immediately, especially since we know who is behind the situation. I was interrupted by Carrie Stewart, which surprised me because he doesn't usually speak until formally addressed. Regina Schneider better hurry. Natasha Powell knows who Ryan Hall is and who she's working for, and he plans to torture her, then kill her just to spite you. Jim Henson's not where you think she is, she's in the old Sue Harris Kevin Turner, top floor, Lisa Johnson 5. Jim Henson's guarded, but not heavily, since he didn't think you'd check there. Keith Barnes's 1-6 scumsucker. Keith Barnes paused to let his information sink in. William Padilla I saw, she had lost a lot of blood from her gunshot wound, and he had tried to beat information out of her. I'm sure you know how well that went over. Regina Schneider should be proud, she never even whimpered. Keith Barnes hung his head, ashamed. Joshua Gonzalez's sudden outburst said and done, he stared at the floor silently while I issued my orders. I assigned Ryan Lowry, Julia Berger, Patrick Morris, Stacy Butler Noble, and Robert Stacy Butler Noble to finding an alternate route into the Sue Harris Kevin Turner and preparing everyone for the swoop. Robert Strickland Sean Bates Sarah Schmidt pulled me aside to ensure his men would be ready in less than 15 minutes, and they were being informed of the situation as we spoke. I thanked him and made my way over to Fernando Smith and Suzanne Aguilar. Fernando Smith, Suzanne Aguilar, head over to the conference room and pull all the information you can on Albert Nash Natasha Powell. Travis Hensley to present what you find, as well as what I've shown you in the video, to the rest of the squad. Michelle Harrington. Two of them left the room, leaving only Carrie Stewart and me. I know, Joshua Edwards, Carrie Stewart said quietly. I'm pulled from this mission because of my ties. I understand completely. I sighed and pulled myself together. Regina Schneider right, Carrie Stewart. I can't allow you to go. I would be a wreck if it were my own partner. I'll bring her back to you, though. I'll do everything I can to make sure of it. Carrie Stewart gave a small nod, understanding the situation. Michelle Montgomery you, Joshua Edwards. Jim Henson's tough, I know she'll hold out until you get there. Brian Mendez bring her back safely, please. I offered a reassuring smile before turning my focus back to the mission at hand. John Chong rest, Carrie Stewart. Sarah De Leon VE got a lot to prepare, and I need you clear-headed when this is all over. Keith Barnes nodded and left the room, leaving me to finalize the rescue plan. Michelle Harrington team was already working quickly, piecing together the blueprints of the Sue Harris Kevin Turner and organizing the best route for an infiltration. Robert Strickland Sean Bates Sarah Schmidt soldiers were on standby, armed and ready to assist. Joseph Brady coordinating with Sarah Schmidt, I gave a final briefing to my team. Haley Hernandez as the plan will use the basement parking garage as our entry point and move up through the maintenance stairwell. Sarah De Leon will split into two groups. Ryan Lowry, you'll lead the first group up to the second floor to secure the exits. Julia Berger and Fernando Smith will join me in the primary assault up to Lisa Johnson 1. Michelle Harrington goal is to extract Ryan Hall and neutralize any threats. Theodore Castillo's do this quickly and quietly. Ronnie Ortiz ready. Michelle Harrington determined nods from the team solidified our readiness. Sarah De Leon moved swiftly to the parking garage and began the ascent up the maintenance stairs, keeping to the shadows and staying alert for any signs of trouble. Rebecca Thomas we reached the second floor, I signaled for Ryan Lowry and his group to peel off and secure the exits, while I continued up with Julia Berger and Fernando Smith. Sarah De Leon crept up to the third floor landing, where the entrance to Lisa Johnson 5 was located. I peered through the narrow window on the stairwell door and saw two guards stationed outside the suite. Lindsay Richardson were lightly armed, which made our job easier. I glanced at Julia Berger and whispered, Jeffrey Flores my mark, we'll take them out quietly. Keith Barnes nodded in agreement, gripping his stun baton. Shirley Moore, I whispered. Sarah De Leon moved swiftly, and before the guards had time to react, they were on the ground, unconscious from Julia Berger's stun baton and a well-placed strike from Fernando Smith. Barbara Anderson the guards out of the way, I carefully opened the suite door. Michelle Harrington room was dimly lit, and I could make out a figure tied to a chair in the center of the room. Katrina McDonald was Ryan Hall. Robert Vang's face was pale, and she had a large blood stain on her leg where the bullet had hit her. Jim Henson was unconscious but breathing. I signaled to Fernando Smith to check for other hostiles while Julia Berger and I rushed to Ryan Hall's side. "Christopher Moore in there, Ryan Hall," I whispered, carefully untying her restraints. "Rebecca Thomas." We worked. I noticed movement from the corner of my eye. Michael Hall of Natasha Powell's men emerged from the shadows, gun in hand. "Christopher Bradshaw down," I shouted, pulling Ryan Hall's limp form to the floor as a shot rang out, narrowly missing us. Julia Berger sprang into action, tackling the men and disarming him in a matter of seconds. Rebecca Thomas. Julia Berger secured the hostel. Fernando Smith returned with news that the rest of the floor was clear. Sarah De Leon needed to move fast, though. I knew more of Natasha Powell's men would be arriving soon. "Vanessa Richwright, let's get her out of here," I ordered. Sarah De Leon quickly carried Ryan Hall back down the stairs, retracing our path to the basement. Douglas Davis. The time we reached the parking garage, Robert Strickland, Sean Bates, Sarah Schmidt, soldiers were already there, ready to cover our escape. Lindsay Richardson helped load Ryan Hall into a waiting medical vehicle, and I gave the signal for the rest of the team to regroup at the rendezvous point. Ashley Freeman. Ryan Hall was safely on her way back to the hospital. I addressed Sarah Schmidt and my team. "Beverly Rivas, work, everyone." Sarah De Leon VE secured Ryan Hall, and that's a major win. Kimberly Bailey. We're not done yet. Natasha Powell is still out there, and we have to bring him down. Sarah Schmidt placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Regina Schneider VE got my full support. Joshua Edwards. Natasha Powell's time is running out. Sarah De Leon regrouped at the command center to strategize our next move. Barbara Anderson. The blueprints of the Mary Moore Lane, Kevin Turner, and information from Carrie Stewart. We knew where Natasha Powell was likely hiding. Michelle Harrington's plan was to strike quickly before he had a chance to relocate. Haley Hernandez is what we're going to do, I said, laying out the blueprint on the table. Sarah De Leon will split into 3 teams. Michael Hall will breach the main entrance, the second will come in through the roof, and the third will take the basement level. Natasha Powell won't have anywhere to go. Michelle Harrington teams moved out, each assigned to a different entry point at the Mary Moore Lane. Kevin Turner. I led the main entrance team, moving carefully towards the front doors. Michelle Harrington lobby was heavily guarded, but we had the element of surprise on our side. Sarah De Leon burst through the doors, disarming the guards in a swift, coordinated assault. I could hear the sounds of the other teams breaching their entry points over the comms. Rebecca Thomas. We cleared the main floor. I caught a glimpse of Natasha Powell escaping up a service stairwell. Natasha Powell's on the move, heading up the stairs. I shouted into the communicator. I pursued him up the stairwell, my heart pounding in my ears. Keith Barnes was just ahead of me, desperately trying to reach the roof. Rebecca Thomas. The first closed in. He turned and fired a shot, grazing my shoulder. Michelle Harrington pain was sharp but manageable. I didn't let it slow me down. I tackled Natasha Powell just as he reached the final landing, knocking the gun from his hand. Sarah De Leon struggled briefly, but I overpowered him and secured him with flexi-cuffs. Regina Schneider not going anywhere. Natasha Powell, I spat, dragging him back down the stairs. Katrina McDonald's over. Travis Collins. Natasha Powell down the stairwell. I kept a firm grip on his arm. Keith Barnes struggled, but with his hands cuffed behind his back, he wasn't going anywhere. I radioed the teams. Sarah De Leon VE got him. Natasha Powell is in custody. Stacy Butler. White the building and secure all exits. Rebecca Thomas. We reached the ground floor. I handed Natasha Powell off to Sarah Schmidt soldiers, who promptly escorted him outside to a waiting military vehicle. Michelle Harrington. Look of defeat in his eyes was satisfying, but there was still work to be done. I gathered the rest of my team, and we began the final sweep of the building to ensure there were no remaining threats. Joseph Brady confirming the building was secure. I stepped outside to see Natasha Powell being placed in the back of a heavily armored truck. Joshua Gonzalez's green eyes glared at me, and I could see the hatred burning within him. Regina Schneider. Think you've won, Nathan Flowers, he sneered. Jennifer Turner. Isn't over. I have allies, and they won't let this slide. Scott Sharp. Allies are either in custody or on the run, I replied coldly. Katrina McDonald. Is over, Natasha Powell. Regina Schneider. VE caused enough pain, and now you're going to answer for it. Rebecca Thomas. The truck drove away. A wave of relief washed over me, though I knew it wasn't the end. Kevin Gonzalez would be a trial, and his connections might still pose a threat, but for now, the East Adrian Shire was safe again. I took a moment to catch my breath, letting the adrenaline fade. Jeffrey Austin, my attention to Ryan Hall, who had just been brought back from the hospital for questioning. I hurried to her side. Jim Henson was sitting on a bench outside the command center, her leg bandaged, but she looked alert. "Ryan Hall, are you okay?" I asked, taking a seat next to her. "I've had better days," she said, managing a faint smile. "Kimberly Bailey, thanks for getting me out of there, Joshua Edwards. I didn't know if I was going to make it. Benjamin Benitez mentioned it." Regina Schneider held out like a champ. "Shirley Moore, we need to debrief and go over what happened," I said, relieved that she was conscious and in relatively good shape. Joseph Brady, the debrief. I took some time to check in on the rest of my team. Michelle Harrington, adrenaline was starting to wear off, and fatigue was setting in. Kimberly Bailey, there was still one more thing I needed to do before calling it a day. See Anna Payne. I headed back to the shelter, where he had been kept under observation. Rebecca Thomas the first walked into the makeshift medical ward. I saw Anna Payne sitting up in bed, looking stronger than when I had last seen him. Michelle Harrington, relief washed over me like a tidal wave. "Regina Schneider, re-up," I said, trying to sound calm. "Victoria Joyce, I'm getting there," he replied, flashing a small grin. "William Castillo, you were busy saving the world again." I chuckled and sat down beside him, placing my hand on his. "Brittany Smith like that," I said softly, leaning in for a kiss. Katrina MacDonald was gentle and comforting, a reminder that despite everything, we still had each other. Anna Payne's smile faded slightly as he looked at me with concern. Nicholas Roberts' the shoulder. Katrina MacDonald's nothing, I replied, brushing it off. A graze. I've had worse. I could see he wasn't entirely convinced, but he didn't press the issue. Melissa Kaiser, now that Natasha Powell is out of the picture, what's next? He asked. Maurice Smith, we prepare for the trial. Keith Barnes'll be facing a long list of charges. Michelle Harrington, evidence we've gathered should keep him behind bars for life, I said confidently. Kimberly Bailey, for now, I think we could both use some rest. Anna Payne nodded in agreement. I couldn't agree more. Kimberly Bailey, there's something I want to do first. Michael, where I could respond, he reached over to his bedside table, pulling out a small, velvet box. Terry Brown heart skipped a beat as he opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant engagement ring. Nathan Flowers, Matthew Edwards, I've loved you since that day in high school, and I can't imagine going through another day without you by my side. Scott Reeves, you marry me. Michelle Harrington, exhaustion and pain faded away as I stared at the ring, then at him. Sandra Freeman, of course I will. I exclaimed, wrapping my arms around him, careful to avoid his injuries. Susan Conley, kiss was deep and full of emotion, a promise of the life we would build together. Russell Ross, months later, the Sydney View had mostly returned to normal. Natasha Powell's trial was a long and grueling process, with testimonies from survivors, captured escapees, and former associates who had turned against him. Oscar Williams, the end. Natasha Powell was found guilty on multiple charges, including conspiracy, kidnapping, and multiple counts of murder. Keith Barnes was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Ryan Hall had fully recovered from her injuries and was back on the team, stronger and more determined than ever. Jim Henson and Carrie Stewart finally made their relationship official, and they seemed happier than I'd ever seen them. Fernando Smith took on a leadership role, and the team received commendations for their bravery during the crisis. Anna Payne and I got married in a small, private ceremony with our closest friends and family. Sarah De Leon decided to keep things low-key, knowing that we had both been through enough drama for a lifetime. Katrina MacDonald was a day filled with love, laughter, and a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in years. Rebecca Thomas, we danced under the setting sun. Anna Payne whispered in my ear, Regina Schneider, no, I always knew we'd end up here. I smiled and rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Mary Moore Diaz, did I said softly. Michelle Harrington, chaos and darkness that had surrounded us seemed like a distant memory, and for the first time in a long time, everything felt right. Randall Allen passed, and life slowly fell into a comforting rhythm. Michelle Harrington knew Rebecca Berg had healed from the chaos that Natasha Powell and his allies had inflicted, and I had settled into a different role. Joseph Brady. Another few years of service, I decided it was time to step back from active duty. I retired from the force 7 years ago, handing over the reins to Fernando Smith, who had become an exceptional leader in her own right. Katrina MacDonald felt good to watch her step into the role I had once held, knowing that the Watkinshaven was in capable hands. Anna Payne and I moved to a quiet area on the outskirts of the John Borough, where we bought a modest house surrounded by trees. Katrina MacDonald was the perfect place to leave behind the memories of conflict and focus on building a peaceful life together. Sarah De Leon spent our days tending to the garden, going on long hikes, and enjoying the small things we had often taken for granted during our years on the force. Ryan Hall and Carrie Stewart remained close friends. Joseph Brady. Ryan Hall fully recovered, she continued to serve with distinction, eventually becoming Fernando Smith's second-in-command. Carrie Stewart left law enforcement but found a calling in community work, helping at-risk youth avoid the kind of life he had once lived. Brandy Julia Lynn relationship flourished, and they married 2 years after Anna Payne and I tied the knot. Lindsay Richardson now had 2 young boys who were just as mischievous as their parents. Sarah De Leon often had them over for dinner, where Anna Payne and Carrie Stewart would try to outdo each other on the grill while Ryan Hall and I caught up on life. Sandy Velasquez. Not everyone's story ended on a happy note. Bryce Berry. Brandon Cameron had fought hard after the injury she sustained during the crisis, but complications arose, and she passed away after a long struggle. Robert Vang. Name and picture remained on the Cristina Ramirez Leslie Ramos at the precinct, alongside others who had given their lives in service to the West Michael Fort. Sarah De Leon held a memorial every year to honor them, and I always made sure to attend, even after retirement. Katrina MacDonald was important to remember the sacrifices they made and the lives they saved. Robert Strickland. Sean Bates. Sarah Schmidt continued his military career and eventually retired to Lauren Wright, where he settled down with his wife and kids. Sarah De Leon kept in touch occasionally, exchanging letters and holiday cards. I would always be grateful for his support during the darkest days of the crisis. Rebecca Thomas. For Natasha Powell, he remained in prison, serving his life sentence. Keith Barnes appealed his conviction multiple times, but each attempt was denied. Michelle Harrington. Courtney Furt was safer without him, and the passage of time had dulled the fear he once incited. Joshua Gonzalez's name rarely came up in conversation anymore, and that suited me just fine. Michelle Harrington. Past needed to stay in the past. Anna Payne and I found new ways to stay connected to the world of law enforcement, despite our retirement. I took up a part-time position as an instructor at the local police academy, teaching courses on crisis negotiation and field tactics. Katrina MacDonald was fulfilling to pass on my knowledge to the next generation of officers, ensuring they were better prepared than I ever was. Anna Payne, too, occasionally helped out with training, sharing his own experiences with recruits who hung on his every word. Michael Hall. Afternoon. As we walked along a familiar trail near our home, Anna Payne suddenly stopped and turned to me with a thoughtful expression. Regina Schneider. No, Jennifer Shepard, he said, I've been thinking. Sarah De Leon. VE done a lot of good for this Lake Brandon mouth, but what if we started doing good on a smaller scale? Matthew Taylor. It's time we expanded our family. I paused, my heart skipping a beat at the suggestion. Regina Schneider. Mean children? I asked, my voice a mix of surprise and excitement. Victoria Joyce, he replied, his blue eyes twinkling with warmth. Katrina MacDonald. Something we've talked about before, but now it feels like the right time. Kenneth Reed. Do you think? I felt a smile spread across my face, and I leaned in to kiss him. I think it's a wonderful idea, Anna Payne. Theodore Castillo's. Do it. A year later, our lives took on a whole new meaning when our daughter, Roger King, was born. Jim Henson was a bright-eyed, curious little girl who brought a new level of joy to our home. Mark Cologne was an entirely different kind of challenge, but one we embraced with open hearts. Sarah De Leon often joked that if we could survive everything we'd been through in our careers, we could definitely handle a toddler. Susan Conley. Little family grew, and so did our happiness. Justin Newton. Roger King run around the backyard with her boundless energy. It was hard to believe that there was a time when the world felt so dark. Michelle Harrington. Love and peace we had now were more than I had ever imagined possible. Karen Patton. Though the days of danger and adrenaline were behind us, the memories of those times would always stay with me. Lindsay Richardson shaped who I was and brought me to where I am today, a place of contentment and love, with the people who mattered most by my side. I had faced the darkest corners of the new Joseph, confronted my deepest fears, and found my way to the light. Rebecca Thomas I sat on the porch, watching Anna Payne and Roger King play. I realized that despite all the battles fought, all the scars, and all the losses, I had finally found the life I had been fighting for. Benjamin Hicks, for that, I was eternally grateful. Lin Young with Roger King brought a new kind of happiness that Anna Payne and I hadn't known before. Justin Newton, her grow and explore the world with wide-eyed curiosity, reminded us daily of the beauty in life's simplest moments. Billy Rivera, her first steps to her first words, each milestone filled our home with laughter and joy. Rebecca Thomas, Roger King grew. It became clear that she had inherited a streak of courage and determination. Jim Henson was the kind of child who would fall, get back up, and try again without hesitation. I stayed involved with the police academy, teaching part-time and mentoring young recruits. Katrina McDonald was fulfilling work that allowed me to share my experiences while still having time for family. Anna Payne eventually took on a position as a consultant for the local police force, offering his expertise in crisis management and helping the department refine its strategies. Katrina McDonald gave us both a chance to stay connected to the community we had served for so long, but without the intensity of our old roles. Michael Hall summer, when Roger King was about 6 years old, we took a family trip up to a cabin in the mountains. Katrina McDonald was a small, rustic place surrounded by tall pine trees and a clear, babbling creek. Sarah De Leon spent the days hiking, fishing, and roasting marshmallows by the fire at night. Michelle Harrington air was crisp and cool, a welcome escape from the busyness of everyday life. Michael Hall afternoon, as we were walking along the creek, Roger King ran ahead, her laughter echoing through the trees. Anna Payne and I strolled behind, enjoying the peacefulness. Danielle Coffey, out of nowhere, Roger King called out, "Barbara Allen." Jesus Hurst. David Townsend, see this. Sarah De Leon quickened our pace and found her standing by a large rock near the creek, pointing excitedly at something beneath it. Laura Harvey. A turtle, she exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. Sarah De Leon crouched down beside her, and sure enough, there was a small turtle, its head poking out cautiously. Roger King looked up at us and asked, "Daryl Jenkins, we keep it?" I exchanged a glance with Anna Payne, who grinned. Nicholas Roberts, about we let it stay here in its home, sweetie. Katrina McDonald's happiest in the wild, where it can find food and friends, I explained gently. Roger King pouted for a moment but then nodded, understanding. Stephanie Arnold. Daryl Jenkins, we come visit it next time we come back. Stacy Butler Schmidt, Anna Payne said, ruffling her hair. Sarah De Leon will come back and check on it. Michelle Harrington trip became a cherished memory, one of many moments when I realized how far we had come. Katrina McDonald was a stark contrast to the years filled with danger and uncertainty. Shirley Moore, our lives were about family, friends, and creating happy memories. Kimberly Bailey, there were still days when the past found its way back into my thoughts. David Elliott, I would wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, with flashes of the crises I had once faced. Katrina McDonald wasn't the memories of the battles themselves that haunted me, but the faces of those we had lost, Bryce Berry, Brandon Cameron, the civilians caught in the crossfire, and even Stacy Butler, whose murder Natasha Powell had never shown an ounce of remorse for. Kevin Gonzalez were still lingering what-ifs and unresolved feelings. Anna Payne would always notice when I was lost in thought. Michael Hall night, as I stared out the window, he came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. Brian Martinez, about the old days, he asked softly. I nodded, leaning back against him. David Elliott, I wonder if we could have done more, or if we could have stopped Natasha Powell before it got so out of control. Keith Barnes kissed the top of my head. Sarah De Leon did everything we could, Nathan Flowers. Regina Schneider did more than anyone else could have. Regina Schneider saved lives, and you brought Natasha Powell to justice. Katrina McDonald's okay to let it go now. I know, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Katrina McDonald's just hard sometimes. I keep thinking about the people we couldn't save. Anna Payne turned me to face him, his blue eyes searching mine. Regina Schneider VE always cared too much, that's what makes you who you are. Kimberly Bailey, don't let the past steal away our present. Sarah De Leon have so much to be grateful for now. Theodore Castillo's focus on that. Joshua Gonzalez words sank in, and I took a deep breath, letting the tension slip away. I was reminded once again why I had fallen in love with him all those years ago: his unwavering support, his ability to see the good even when things felt bleak, and the way he always managed to bring me back to what mattered most. Rebecca Thomas. The years continued to pass. Roger King grew into a confident, kind-hearted teenager who was curious about our past lives in law enforcement. Jim Henson had always known that her parents had once worn badges, but as she got older, she wanted to hear the stories. Anna Payne and I shared what we felt was appropriate, focusing on the lessons learned rather than the danger. Sarah De Leon wanted her to understand the importance of doing good in the world but didn't want to glorify the risks we had taken. Michael Hall evening. As we sat around the dinner table, Roger King surprised us with an announcement. "I think I want to be a police officer when I grow up," she said with determination in her voice. I felt a pang of anxiety, knowing firsthand the dangers of the job. Kimberly Bailey. I also understood the calling she felt. It was in her blood, just like it had been in mine. Tiffany Bridges. "That's what you want, Roger King. I'll support you," I said, exchanging a knowing glance with Anna Payne. Kimberly Bailey. "Promise me you'll be careful." Katrina McDonald's. "Not an easy path." Jim Henson nodded. "I promise, Barbara Allen. I want to help people, just like you and Jesus Hurst did." Rebecca Thomas. "Much as I worried about her following in our footsteps, I was proud." Katrina McDonald. "Was the same sense of duty that had driven me, and I could see that she was already wise beyond her years." Vanessa Rich. "I could do was prepare her as best as I could and hope that the world would be a little kinder by the time she wore the badge." Anna Payne squeezed my hand under the table, and I looked at him, feeling a sense of reassurance. Sarah De Leon. "Had weathered the storms together, and we would face whatever the future held the same way, side by side, with love and resilience." Rebecca Thomas. "The first watched Roger King grow into a remarkable young woman. I realized that life had come full circle. Michelle Harrington. "Battles we fought, the sacrifices we made, and the love we built had all brought us to this moment." Benjamin Hicks. "As long as we had each other, there was nothing we couldn't face." Michelle Harrington. "Day Roger King graduated from high school was a bittersweet one." Justin Newton. "Her walk across the stage to receive her diploma filled me with pride, but it also marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life, and ours." Jim Henson had been accepted to a well-regarded criminal justice program at a university not too far from home, and while I was thrilled for her, the reality of her pursuing a career in law enforcement stirred up old fears. Anna Payne and I helped her move into her dorm, unpacking boxes and setting up the small room that would be her home for the next 4 years. Rebecca Thomas. "We said our goodbyes. I hugged her tightly, feeling a lump form in my throat." Regina Schneider. "Going to do great, Roger King." Brian Mendez. "Remember, we're always here if you need us." "I know, Barbara Allen," she said, squeezing me back. Regina Schneider. "And Jesus Hurst taught me everything I need to know." Anna Payne wrapped an arm around my shoulders as we walked back to the Beanberry. I glanced over my shoulder at Roger King, standing in the doorway of her dorm, giving us a little wave. Jim Henson's going to be fine, Anna Payne reassured me, sensing my emotions. Jim Henson's smart, tough, and well-prepared. Regina Schneider. VE done a great job raising her. Michelle Harrington. Empty nest was an adjustment. Susan Conley. House seemed quieter without Roger King's constant energy, and there were days when I missed the chaos that came with raising a teenager. Kimberly Bailey. Anna Payne and I embraced the newfound freedom. Sarah De Leon traveled more, spent time with old friends, and revisited the places we used to love but hadn't had the time to enjoy in years. Katrina McDonald. Felt like we were rediscovering our relationship all over again, now with a lifetime of shared experiences binding us even closer. Rebecca Thomas. Roger King settled into college life. She excelled in her studies, driven by the same passion for justice that had motivated Anna Payne and me. Jim Henson joined the campus police cadet program, and each time she called to tell us about a new training exercise or an internship opportunity, I could hear the enthusiasm in her voice. Katrina McDonald reminded me of the young officer I had once been, eager to make a difference. Michael Hall evening. A few months before Roger King was set to graduate, Anna Payne and I were enjoying a quiet dinner at home when the phone rang. Katrina McDonald was Roger King, and I could tell by the tone in her voice that she was excited. "Barbara Allen, Jesus Hurst," she said breathlessly, "I've been offered a spot in the South Rebecca's Police Academy. Lindsay Richardson said they've seen my records and recommendations, and I start training right after graduation." Michelle Harrington mix of pride and worry I felt was overwhelming. I knew how much this opportunity meant to her, and I also knew the dangers that lay ahead. Kimberly Bailey I pushed aside my apprehensions and congratulated her. Jessica Cook's amazing, Roger King. Sarah De Leon so proud of you, I said, and I meant it. Regina Schneider going to make an incredible officer. Anna Payne and I attended her graduation with immense pride, knowing that she was about to take the first step in following a path we both understood so well. Justin Newton her walk across the stage, it felt as though a new generation was stepping up to continue the work we had once done, but with fresh hope and a renewed sense of purpose. Michelle Harrington first day at the police academy came quickly, and we drove Roger King there, just as we had on her first day of college. Rebecca Thomas we approached the entrance, I felt a familiar pang of anxiety, but Roger King's calm determination reassured me. Jim Henson hugged us both before heading inside, her cadet uniform crisp and neat, her face set with a look of resolve. Michelle Harrington weeks that followed were a whirlwind for Roger King, filled with physical training, classroom instruction, and countless drills. Jim Henson would call us after a tough day, talking about the challenges she faced and the friendships she was building. David Elliott, she asked me for advice on things like negotiation tactics or dealing with high-pressure situations. Katrina McDonald felt strange at times, knowing that my daughter was now living the kind of life I had once led, but I was proud of the way she handled it. Roger King excelled in the academy, just as she had in everything else. Sarah Davis she graduated, she was one of the top recruits in her class. I watched her receive her badge with tears in my eyes, knowing what it symbolized and the responsibility that came with it. Jim Henson was no longer the little girl running around the backyard, she was Joshua Duke Roger King Matthew Edwards now. Robert Vang's first assignment was in a precinct not far from where I had served, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu as she recounted her experiences during her first few months on the job. Kevin Gonzalez were moments when I worried, especially when she was sent on calls that reminded me of situations I had faced in the past. Kimberly Bailey I had to trust that she was capable and well prepared. Jim Henson had learned from the best, after all. Michael Hall evening, I was sitting on the porch when I heard Roger King's Port Melissa mouth pull into the driveway. Jim Henson emerged, looking tired but content, her uniform slightly wrinkled from a long shift. Jim Henson plopped down in the chair next to me and sighed. Michael Jones Day? I asked, handing her a glass of iced tea. Victoria Joyce, you could say that, she replied, taking a sip. Kimberly Bailey I think I'm getting the hang of it. Kevin Gonzalez was a standoff today, and for a second, I wasn't sure what to do. Kimberly Bailey then I remembered what you always told me about staying calm and keeping control of the situation. Katrina McDonald helped, Barbara Allen. I think I actually made a difference today. I felt a swell of pride and reached over to squeeze her hand. I'm proud of you, Roger King. Regina Schneider VE got the instincts and the heart for this job. Brian Mendez remember to take care of yourself, okay. Jim Henson nodded, then leaned back and looked up at the night sky. Regina Schneider no, I think about Crystal McIntosh sometimes. I wonder what he would say if he saw me now. Terry Brown father, who had been a police officer himself, had passed away when Roger King was still young. I smiled softly. Keith Barnes would be so proud of you, Roger King. Keith Barnes always believed in doing what was right, no matter the risk. Benjamin Hicks that's exactly what you're doing. Sarah De Leon sat together in a comfortable silence, enjoying the quiet of the evening. Kevin Gonzalez was a sense of peace in knowing that Roger King was finding her own way, following a path she had chosen, with the strength and resilience she had inherited from her family. Rebecca Thomas time went on, Roger King continued to thrive in her career, taking on more challenging assignments and rising through the ranks. Anna Payne and I found ourselves gradually shifting into a new phase of life, one where we could look back on our years of service with a sense of fulfillment, while also looking forward to what lay ahead. Sarah De Leon had built a life filled with love, perseverance, and hope, a life we could proudly pass on to the next generation. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of resilience, courage, and love. What did you think about the twists and turns of this story? How would you have handled such challenges? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring and action-packed tales.